All right, guys, Julio Rosas here. It is a big day. It is a trial that a lot of people were really looking forward to in terms of just the big controversy surrounding it, and that's the Carmelo Anthony case, where he was accused of stabbing and killing Austin Metcalf during a high school track meet. It started over this confrontation about whether or not Anthony should have been in this track team's tent. There was a push, there was a shove, and then it was clear from the get go that Anthony had, in fact, stabbed Austin in the chest, and that resulted in Austin dying pretty quickly because it was directly to the heart, as we later found out during the trial, that it was pretty much unsurvivable, and that Austin didn't even have defensive wounds because it happened that quickly and he wasn't expecting to be stabbed. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is just because there's a lot of parallels between, particularly within the black community, what happened with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, which I'm very acutely aware of and know because I was there when it happened, and also I covered the trial the following year, and also their reaction to this case with Carmelo Anthony. And I wanted to start things off with kind of just a quick summarization of the trial for anyone who hadn't been keeping up from day to day. But basically, from day one, this trial did not go in Anthony's favor, in Carmelo's favor, because one, it was pretty evident that he did it. One of the, shortly after the stabbing, and one of the Frisco police officers who was called to testify, he said that Anthony, when he radioed in that he got a suspect in custody, Anthony told him, "No, this is not alleged. I did this stabbing." So that's problem number one. But also problem number two was the witnesses, because contrary to what some of Anthony's defenders were claiming leading up to this trial, it was that they were saying that the video, which hasn't been made public yet, the video from the track meet would prove that this was a case of self-defense because the video is going to show that Carmelo was surrounded by Metcalf, other people, and that's why he decided to act in self-defense, because he was starting to be attacked and was threatened for, his fear for his life, and that's why he took the action that he did. But with the witnesses being brought forward, not just by the prosecution, but the defense team, it was very evident that that was not the case. And the reporters who were in the courtroom, the observers who were in the courtroom and who were able to see the video, one, it didn't show that. And in fact, all of the witnesses said that Carmelo was the one who was being aggressive from the get go. Austin was saying, "Hey, look, I'm not going to fight you, but you can't be here. It's kind of against the rules." And then Carmelo said, "Hey, touch me and see what happens," while reaching into his backpack. So it's pretty evident that he was already going into an aggressive posture. And then we have just that shove, and people said, well, yeah, he made contact with, Austin made contact with Carmelo first, but it didn't warrant lethal force against non-lethal force, because obviously a shove is, especially for high schoolers, it's not going to be that lethal unless there's some crazy circumstance that happens after that. But even like I said, even Anthony's witnesses that were called, they did agree that, one, he shouldn't have had a knife. I've been seeing a lot of his defenders saying, "Well, the knife he was carrying was legal." I was like, "Well, yeah, I can legally carry a firearm. That doesn't mean that I can just shoot somebody for no reason. I mean, that's just not how self defense works." And it's very funny, and we're gonna get to it. It's very funny how all of a sudden the pro BLM community, what little remains of it, compared to 2020, is all of a sudden very much on the self defense bandwagon, when that wasn't the case when it came to Kyle Rittenhouse. But yeah, I mean that's just basically how the trial went from, and I will give props to how quickly that this was concluded, because this has been building up ever since this happened last year, and they said it was expected to take about 2 weeks, but really only took about a week. They even even had the part of the trial on Saturday because the judge was like, "Hey, we just need to get this over with as quickly as possible." But even one of the other witnesses that was called by his defense team actually showed that his testimony was not accurate. Was not accurate at best, or lying at worst, where initially he said that, oh yeah, I saw him being surrounded when the confrontation started, but the video showed that he was actually facing the other way when things happened, and he didn't turn around until after that clash happened. So that obviously doesn't speak to the credibility of that witness. And so with all of that in mind, there's no surprise, one, at the outcome, with him being found guilty of murder, not manslaughter, but also how quickly the jury came to that verdict. I mean, it was only about 3 hours, because again, the guilt was not in doubt in this case. It was just a matter of, are we going to find you guilty on murder or manslaughter? And even the prosecution in its closing argument was saying, look, if you believe that Karmelo took the knife out and in this struggle Austin impaled himself on it, okay, find him guilty of manslaughter, but we've made a pretty clear-cut case that this was murder, and not self-defense. And it was also, again, against Karmelo in terms of how they kind of knew where this was going, where he didn't testify he didn't testify on his behalf to give his account, because again, it's just pretty blatantly obvious on how guilty he was in this matter. So that's just basically kind of how the trial went. It just, from day one all the way to the end, it just wasn't in his favor. It was just a matter of how bad of a verdict in his view he was going to get. And they said that when the guilty verdict was read, he started crying pretty loudly, and when he was brought back in to start the sentencing part of the trial, he was still shaking. He was still very obviously very emotional, because his life is now going to be changed forever. But part of the reason why I wanted to make this video is just because, again, seeing the reaction to it from both people, his supporters from outside the courthouse to people online. And it's basically what you expect, right? I mean, you have a lot of people within the black community who are just maintaining that, yep, it was self-defense. This was rigged against him because there was no black jurors on his trial. They're falsely claiming that it was an all-white jury. Again, that's not true. There was other minorities, just not black people, partly because you had some black people during jury selection saying, I don't know if I can put a brother in jail. Yeah, that's props for them for being honest. I'll give them props for that, but that's not how a jury should work. It should be on the facts, not based off of the racial preferences that a potential juror might have. So they disqualified themselves, number one, but also number two, again, it's just not true that it was only white people. There was other races on there, and it's just sad that we need to even make that case, because again, it's not the evidence was just so stacked against Karmelo. It's just crazy. So one of the videos, this first video here, was right after the verdict was read, and it's just so.
What do you want us to do? That's right. What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for words. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin.
Let me ask you this right now.
So. Okay, so here's what she could do. She could tell her 5 boys, don't bring a knife or a gun to a track meet. That's number one. But also number two, it's also funny because she says, they can't walk away. The trial established pretty clearly that Karmelo had plenty of time, plenty of chances to walk away. And this all, I mean, that's how this whole thing started. And sure, you could try to be like, well, Austin didn't have the authority to push anybody away. He shouldn't have done that. Austin was bigger than Karmelo and all this stuff. And that's all fine and good, I suppose, but that doesn't negate the fact that the lethal force that Carmelo decided to do in response to a shove when it didn't warrant it at that time. I mean, again, this is where we are as a country, where there's just no accountability within the community. Again, she's saying that, what am I supposed to tell them? I kind of listed out some pretty good advice, because apparently she's unable to think of that, to just say just don't bring a weapon to school grounds. That will go a long way in not deciding to use lethal force when it's not warranted. Because, of course, look, self-defense is very important. I mean, when you look at what's happening in other parts of the world, like civilized parts of the world, Europe, the UK, where there's these crazy stories about how there's legitimate self-defense scenarios, but because the laws are now the way they are, you can't really do that anymore. But we're not there. At least thankfully we're not there yet, or at all as a country, and hopefully we don't reach that point. But yeah, what do you tell them? Don't kill anybody. That's a start. And next we have Dominique Alexander. Now this guy he's just a funny guy, for all the wrong reasons, because he was kind of acting as a spokesman, an organizer on Carmelo's family's behalf shortly after this murder took place. He's a racial justice activist. He has an organization called Next Generation Action Network, and he was there. Of course, he was there outside, and he gave a statement. And again, you just kind of you have to hear it for yourself. And no, this isn't AI, but you have to hear for yourself just kind of how just detached from reality his supporters are, after the verdict was read.
I speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network. The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process, to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network obstructed this process, interfered in this process. But what this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County. It showed us that time and time in American history, it has shown us to remove emotions from yet the law. This trial showed that it put emotions over the law. After Trayvon Martin and so many countless names, it has shown us that black life is not safe in Collin County. It showed us that they did not listen to the law. It showed clearly that a judge interfered in this process. It showed very clearly that a black boy was allowed, not one black soul on a jury. An all white jury.
Again, not true.
Convicted him in 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, look at that.
We know
just,
that they
just
did not prove
along.
their case.
What are these with?
They are currently sentencing Karmelo Anthony. But we know that the Next Generation Action Network put the first $10,000 towards an appellate attorney. And we will fight Collin County like hell. I respected this process. I allowed and called for peace in this process. But Black America should be very upset about what went on today.
We are.
Now, before all of the internet lawyers...
All right, that's enough. All right, yeah. So I don't even. I mean, what do you even say to that? I mean, what do you even say to that when all of the evidence again was laid out? I mean, this was not a kangaroo court. This is not a hearing held in secret. This is not. All the information came from multiple people. There was multiple reporters, multiple observers, people just watching, and they all put out the same information, if they're reliable, which many of them were. And it's just every time you see it, it's just dumbfounding. It's not surprising, because if it would be surprising, we would have a totally different conversation. But saying that Black lives don't matter in Collin County and all that. And of course, I mean, look, clearly from Carmelo's perspective, Austin's life didn't matter in that moment. He made his intention clear when he said, "Hey, touch me and find out what happens." I mean, pattern recognition would dictate like, "Oh, okay, like let's back away here for a second. Like let's cool down." But of course, I mean, who would have thought, right? I mean, this is a high school setting. This isn't any kind of this isn't in any ghetto or anything crazy like that. And yet we're still at this point where things go from 0 to 100 really quickly. And again, that testimony from the medical examiner saying that Austin didn't even have defensive wounds on him, on his body, because he was just totally blindsided when he got stabbed directly in the heart. I mean, that was a kill shot that it appeared Karmelo was going for, and that's how it goes when you make a decision like that. That's the risk you take. I mean, he can't even really. I'm not even sure they made the case of like, oh well, he wasn't trying to kill him; he was just trying to scare him off. Because when you're stabbing someone in this general vicinity, it's kind of clear where what you're trying to do to them. And the day before, Dominique Alexander and the Next Generation Action Network, really showed how their thinking process is with this by invoking Kyle Rittenhouse, and of course he's not the only person or the only group or organization to bring up Kyle Rittenhouse, but it says, why did Kyle Rittenhouse need an AR-15 style rifle at what was described as a protest? All right, see, there we go, from the get-go. And I've made this very clear at any opportunity that I've been able to get that this what was happening in Kenosha that night, August 25th, almost 6 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. It was not a protest. It started out as a protest, as these things typically tend to start out as, but it quickly dissolved into another riot, which was night 3, night 4. And it goes beyond just attacking cops. It goes beyond just attacking the courthouse. I mean, by this point, large portions of Kenosha had been burned down. A lot of places had been destroyed, looted, all this stuff. So if you weren't armed by this point, it was kind of like are you okay in the head? Because like, yeah, you probably should be armed because these people are crazy. They're going nuts over what was a justified police shooting. Of course, people hadn't accepted that yet, and there were still a lot of things unknown at that point about the shooting of Jacob Blake. But that's like the whole frustrating part about Kenosha and a lot of these riots, a lot of these BLM and Antifa riots, is just that a lot of the incidents or events that caused them to riot in the first place, it wasn't worth burning down a town over, especially a town like Kenosha, because at least with Minneapolis, it's still a major metropolitan area. Kenosha is certainly not one of that. Then it goes on to say, yet here we are in 2026, and some of the same voices are questioning why Karmelo Anthony carried a knife that is completely legal under Texas law to possess and carry. Rights are either for everyone or no one. The Constitution does not selectively apply based on race, background, neighborhood, or public perception. And yet, his supporters, Anthony's supporters, Karmelo's supporters, want that to be applied to the jury. They want, because they've said time and again, we weren't able to put a black person on the jury. And again, it's because they themselves disqualified themselves from the jury by, again, props to them being honest about how they felt about the case, about how they felt about the possibility, the very high possibility, of sentencing this young black guy to prison. Again, it's the hypocrisy. It's just it's the disconnect from any sort of logic that, yeah, here we are 6 years later. You still don't even know the basic facts about what happened that night in Kenosha. I lived it. I saw it. I was present at the trial every day, and it just blows my mind how 6 years later, and unlike this trial, Rittenhouse's trial was televised. So Again, you don't need to go through from start to finish. You can if you want to, if you have the time, because it was a long 2 weeks. Yes, it was around that time, but you could just watch the highlights that people have put together. That all the legal, the news, and you could see from clear as day that that was a clear cut case of self defense. I mean, even the New York Times, because the New York Times about a week after the shooting happened, they actually did do a very good job of getting their video forensics team together, and from putting out a very good report of all the videos that were available at that time, basically putting out a timeline of what happened. And even though we didn't have all of the facts, I mean, the video was pretty clear cut. But even though we didn't have all the facts, just from that report from the New York Times, again, just showed that this was not a guy that was just going around trying to find black people at a peaceful protest to just shoot. I mean, the video from the first attack from Joseph Rosenbaum to the second portion, which is the portion that I saw, and people are still trying to claim that Rittenhouse crossed state lines that night with the firearm, and so therefore that just showed his intent to just do the shooting at a peaceful BLM, when I mean, or that his mom dropped him off, or so, like, I mean, just the basic. That's why you as soon as they bring that up, you just discredit them. All right, these people are idiots. And again, that could be applied to here by his Karmelo supporters saying that this was an all white jury, when again that's not. I've seen reporters multiple times who were in the courtroom having to put out all these statements and all these posts on social media, being like, no, don't listen to the people who are literally not even in the courtroom. This is not an all-white jury. And again, it shouldn't even matter, even if it was an all-white jury, because the evidence was just so compelling. The evidence was so overwhelming that his own defense team is not even trying to address whether or not he did it, because he clearly did it. And then, rights cannot be reserved for some and denied to others. America must decide whether it believes in equal protection under the law or merely selective outrage. Well, if there's any group that is very keen on conducting or doing selective outrage, it's certainly the Black Lives Matter crowd. And then, I mean, I like how this guy, he clearly botched the case. This should have been an easy case to win because it was clear self-defense. I wonder why he decided to lock the replies on that post once it reached 1,300 replies to that. Yeah, I don't. So I'm not entirely sure how you could even post this with without being on drugs or being drunk. And then of course he hits back with the white boy still maggot food though. Yeah, very well-adjusted individual here. So that's it, guys. I mean, it was. I mean, you never know with a jury trial. People always, legal people who do this for a living, they always say, never be 100% sure on the outcome when it comes to jury trials, because there's curveballs all the time, and that certainly could have applied here. Applied here for this case, but I mean, I just don't know what other example or what other outcome that this could have been. I mean, if this, because people were texting me like, oh, we're gonna get riots now, or we're gonna get we're gonna riot season. Well, one, we're already in riot season. Newark already proved that, but I could tell that if this was going to be a guilty case of murder, not manslaughter, that there wasn't going to be much of a kinetic response, because, well, number one, there was not that many supporters outside the courthouse. There was like a couple dozen, pro Karmelo people out there. I mean, it's also like the Dallas metropolitan area. That's not exactly prone to riots. That's not to say this could never happen, but it's just 2020 was such a unique year. Now, if this trial happened in 2020, then yes, I would say that it probably would have gone kinetic. Maybe not huge, but again, it was crazy seeing what was setting people off at that point. My favorite example showing just how far off the deep end people were at going at that time was when in West Philly in October of that year, there was a black guy who was charging at police officers with a knife. So police officers shot and killed him because he's charging at them with the knife. I mean, a taser is not really a good option at that point. People still rioted over that case, and they released the body cam footage from that pretty quickly to say, yeah, we're not making this up. This guy was trying to kill these officers, and that didn't stop. That didn't stop people from going out in West Philly and then in North Philadelphia the night right after that. So, yeah, I wasn't really expecting anything crazy to happen. I mean, people have been saying crazy things outside the courthouse all day long, beyond just mocking or criticizing the outcome. But yeah, this is just a thing you can only really shake your head at, be fatigued with it a little bit if you catch my drift, and we'll see what happens. The sentencing was 35 years. He's eligible for parole after serving half of that sentence, so 15 and a half, 16 years. He could be out on parole. I think he could have faced up to 99 years, and I think it should have been definitely more on the longer side, 40, 45, 50. Because again, depending on what happens with the parole, I mean, look, 16 years, 15 years is a long way from now. So who knows how the situation is by then? But I feel like if for some reason he's out on parole after 15 years, that's certainly not enough. It's just a tragic incident. Dumb decisions were made on Anthony's part. So and here we are. I saw one person said, yeah, I bet he wish he took the one of the 15 opportunities that he was given to just walk away. But that's what happens when you're in that egotistical, entitled mindset. It just, you do crazy things. So, yeah, I just wanted to give a quick rundown, give a quick reaction video to this, because obviously a lot of people are talking about it. And so if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next one.